to start?
Maybe he's voting.
Okay.
Yep.
7:30, I'll call the meeting to order. We have a roll call.
Bill Brown,
Here.
Annie Adams. Here. Leonardo Kovitz. Kara Dudek.
Here.
Cynthia Hoyle.
Present.
Audrey Ishii.
Here.
Susan Jones.
Here.
Jeff Marino. Craig Schunkweiler.
Here.
Nancy Westcott. Here. Lily Wilcox.
Here.
That's right.
Okay, see, we have a quorum. Next, we have approval of the agenda. Any additions or corrections to the agenda?
Thank you, Anna.
Okay, if not, is there a motion to approve?
I move to approve the agenda.
Is there a second?
I second.
Moved by Sue, seconded by Audrey. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That carries. Approval of the minutes from the previous meeting, that was from February. They were excellent minutes. It was great to be able to see the details on the pedestrian plan. Did anybody have any corrections or anything for the minutes?
I already sent mine in and they were included.
Okay.
I move we approve.
Moved by
second.
Cynthia, seconded by Kara. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. And let the record show that Leo arrived. Okay. Public input. Any members of the public want to speak?
There's no one here, so I don't think they can.
And
Oh, there's
let
Jeff.
the record show Jeff arrived.
Kevin, how did you
Kevin
get him?
arrived.
This is Kevin.
He had the
He's
code.
very dapper with his plaid scarf.
Let the record show. Okay, seeing no public input, is there unfinished business? Oh, the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Commission Annual Report. That would be me, and I still don't have a draft for you, I'm sorry. It's great working at the U of I, it's great you can get 4 days to go to the bike summit. When you come back, you still have the same amount of work, that's the problem. So I'm still catching up from that, but I will try to get you a draft in the next week or two, so you have time to give me comments, and then we can
Well,
have
that way I don't have to feel
almost
guilty at
finished
spending so long to
version
get it to you.
for our April meeting, and then I'll present it at council May 7th. That's the plan. But I did get started on it, and I don't have any serious questions. Maybe one thing that wasn't in last year's, that we got the update from Craig, I guess in January, which isn't officially 2017, but it's about all the things that have been accomplished basically in 2017, the infrastructure things. And I don't think we really detailed in our annual report before. I think it'd be good
Yeah.
for council to see that, because you might get to that during the capital planning process or budgeting process, but by then
That's a great
they aren't
idea.
really focusing on bicycle infrastructure. So I just think it just lists those things that you kind of went over. Would you be able to provide me with
Yeah,
that?
I can do that.
That would be great.
I remember you had some things like in yellow, and I forget exactly. I don't know if those were PowerPoint slides. or
Yeah,
just
now
an
that we're
Excel
tracking
sheet
that,
or
it'll be
something.
easy.
Cool. And then other than that, if anybody has any pictures, local pictures of things that happened last year, whether it was us or something else, I think just
Well,
kind
we
of
have lots of those.
general pictures that I could throw into the slides would be a nice kind of local.
Why don't you open the folder somewhere and we can put pictures in there?
Yeah, I can do that.
So we
Yeah.
don't, trying to email it can be
And then
problematic.
it's another prompt reminder.
Yeah, yeah.
Just, create a folder and then say
A
You
Google
send
Drive
it
folder or
to
something.
Google Docs or Box
Mhm.
folder or
box,
something.
So I've got plenty of
It's a great
pictures.
idea.
Cool.
Okay, yeah, I think the rest I'll be able to handle if I come up with any questions and I ask individual people. Next is report on the National Bike Summit. Cynthia and I went to that. Do you want to start, or want me to kind of? I'll start. So this was my second one. The first one was 3 years ago. It was a little bit different. The previous one was pretty mellow in town because the congressmen were out of town and they were out of session 3 years ago. But it didn't really matter because you tend to talk to the staff most of the time anyway, and they're the ones that have the time and the attention to give you when you're talking about issues, especially if you're advocating for specific legislation. And some of the staff are really familiar with bicycle infrastructure part of capital funding, transportation funding. So as far as that goes, I think the lobbying was pretty similar, just kind of the atmosphere was a lot different because this year they were actually discussing the infrastructure bill the week we were there. We went to the committee, it's just a committee on transportation infrastructure, which Rodney Davis is on. So he was there. And heard some pretty good testimony from both the committee chair and the ranking Democratic member that was quoted in the paper the next day. So like, oh yeah, I heard that, I was right there. So that was kind of fun. And also some testimony from the Chamber of Commerce and Trucking Association, all kind of supporting a gas tax increase for transportation funding. So that was interesting. But mostly what we had 3 points we were lobbying for. One was, I'll start with the one I kind of, we went in teams. So Illinois, there were 6 or 7 of us. I think there were 6 of us, and then one guy that was living in Washington joined us because he was from Illinois.
He actually lives in Illinois, but he works for a league.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So we divided into 2 teams and tried to hit mostly congressional offices that gave us appointments. Some of the people they called wouldn't give us appointments, like Shimka's office for some reason didn't give us appointment. But that's where most of the KRT, Kickapoo Rail Trail is in this district. Only the first 2 miles outside of Urbana is in Rodney's district. But so we divided up into 2 groups, and then within those groups we each kind of took an issue. So my issue was HR 4241. It's actually the only legislation that they had text for that we were discussing, and that's it's a pretty small amount. It's $500,000 out of administrative funds of Department of Transportation that would go to a seed project to fund a pilot project for data and tool sharing from the DOT would purchase the data and the tools that show connectivity in areas. So it would be for 5 states and 10 metropolitan areas, including 6 smaller MPOs like we have here regionally. And this data shows where people go or likely to go.
It's like Strava data.
Kind of like Strava data, and using kind of not just where they live and where they work, because only 20–25% of
Bike trips are.
of trips are actually commuting trips, because usually you're going to the store or recreational or whatever. So it takes all that into consideration, so that by providing the data and the tools to these organizations, they can actually at the local level do some scenario development and see. The idea is to make spending on infrastructure more cost effective, so that if there's a small, $50,000, $100,000 project you can do that connects a lot more people, then you can run different scenarios to see where that would best be spent. So that was kind of a fun one to talk about, because you don't get a lot of resistance on things that they don't have to include a lot of money into the budget for. And actually, Davis's office is co-sponsored that. It was a bipartisan bill sponsored mostly by Esty from a Democrat from Connecticut, co-sponsored by Davis, and Lipinski from Illinois, another Democrat. So that was mine, and then the Tiger program was another point we were talking about. That's the big federal program that was actually a stimulus, came out of stimulus packages, and it's been renewed since then several times. It's a competitive grant program, and that's what IMCOR is funded out of. And it tends to just be larger projects, and once you get one, we probably won't see one again, because they do maybe 1 or 2 per state basically. So it probably wouldn't. It may have a big impact on us, but The idea of Tiger funding is really good for complete streets and bicycle and pedestrian
And it
connectivity.
was proposed for zero funding under the current
Yeah, so the
administration.
current administration, there's no bill for it, but the Trump plan was to zero that out and shift that funding to, along with some transit money, make up the federal share of this 20% that would be matched by 80% theoretically from local organizations, which most people we talked to in almost every office just kind of laughed at that, whether they were Republican or Democrats. The Republicans didn't laugh out loud, but you could tell they were laughing.
Right, because in case you all didn't get that, right now it's a 20% local match, 80% federal. The administration proposed flipping that 80% would have to be local and 20% would be federal.
But, so on the Tiger program, I think that most people were showing some flexibility. They realized that as a competitive grant program, it has its good points.
It's very popular.
It is popular and it's interjurisdictional. Like locally, it's Champaign, Urbana, MTD, and U of I, and those kind of things are a lot harder to get people to cooperate on unless they have to in order to get a grant. So that's another thing that's good for the Tiger program.
Yep.
So, so that one I think there's some hope for, not this year, but something may happen next year. And the Republicans said that, they might not want to call it Tiger, they might call it something else, but they like the idea of the plan, and they were mostly concerned about the awards being over politicized, which, I guess kind of depends on your political perspective. And,
The Tiger for multimodal transportation, is that one of the deals with that?
That's supposed
Because I know
to be,
Bloomington's
yes.
got one for-
The one awarded in Illinois this year is a highway project.
Oh,
yeah.
They
There's
were
also
announced
one
that day.
awarded in Iowa, Dubuque. Is it one of the river towns in Iowa that has like riverfront trails and stuff?
Yeah, trails, there were some trails and complete streets that got funding, but it was much more highway
Focused.
heavy
Yeah.
this time than
One
has
that got
been in the
awarded in
past.
Illinois was down by,
It wasn't just
Shawnee.
Illinois, other places
Yeah.
too, yeah.
But Trails and Complete Streets got more funding than they usually do.
right,
So,
Transit didn't get any.
yeah, like 17%, some pretty good percentage.
yeah.
And then the other one was
Sorry.
just principles of transportation investment in general, and
The infrastructure bill.
the infrastructure bill, how they felt about emphasizing safety, kind of complete streets concept. I don't know if I actually used that. Did you talk about that one? In our group, I think Ed mostly talked about that one.
I think I talked more about Tiger, but we emphasize multimodal projects, building networks and fixing gaps, local control, and resilient infrastructure, and also the funding formula that 80 local and 20 federal isn't going to work. And no one, I think, really takes that too seriously. But the performance metrics, people are pretty much in agreement regardless of political persuasion that they want performance metrics and they want them used as a way to, and we are in favor of that. The problem, of course, is what the performance metrics are. And so that's something that we'll have to keep lobbying on.
And then outside of the lobbying, that was just one day. That was like the last day of the conference, Wednesday. So Monday and Tuesday we had some good breakout sessions. I went to a couple of more on like government funding and some of the safety reports. There's been some new safety reports put out in the past year. We had some good keynote speakers. One was the co-founder of New Belgium Brewing. There's a husband-wife founded that, and they're the ones that have Fat Tire beer, and they sponsored a happy hour Monday and Tuesday night.
We had
after.
beer at every event.
They always had beer after the
For free,
at
everything
5
else you had to
o'clock.
pay for.
You could have a couple beers. But that was really interesting because it's only like a 25-year-old company, and for the past 8 years it's been 100% employee owned. The employee stock program basically bought out the company, so they've been 100% employee owned since then. And it's a real socially conscious investment style, and their profits, they tend to reinvest in other socially conscious enterprises, money-making enterprises. And they do some donating and have done a lot for the cities they're in. Is it Boulder?
Fort Collins.
Fort Collins, and also they opened a new brewery in Pennsylvania or someplace closer. I don't remember. That one was good. The other, and we also have the Secretary of Transportation, Elaine Chao, is there. She was the other one that seemed to think that the 20%, 80% match was going to work, but she has to think that. I don't know. And then the break, what, you want to talk about some of the breakout, any of the breakouts you went to, or any other
Well,
things I missed?
I was going to say that Elaine Chow said, of course, automated vehicles have to take pedestrian and bicycle safety into account, that is going to be a requirement. And there was an action alert today, in fact, from LAB that is asking us to contact our congressional delegations about that because of the fatality in Arizona on Sunday. And there's been a lot of confusion. I think the media has a hard time with the people walking and biking.
Does not
But based on the information I have, I think it was a person walking a bike.
Yes.
And she was hit and killed by, even though there was a person in the car, it wasn't a human-less automated vehicle. It actually had a driver in it. But so that's one of the things they want us to contact our congressional delegation and say that cars should have to have vision tests just like people. If you can't see things on the road, then you shouldn't be on the road. So it'll be interesting discussion. I was very interested to hear her say, you know, that has to happen. There were quite a number of good sessions. They asked me to go to one on bike education with youth, and I thought, oh, you know, I know a lot about that, but there were some really very interesting programs. I actually picked up some great information from some places that are doing some very creative work. And the other thing I wanted to add is that because Congress is in session, which is how Bike Summit is supposed to operate, I ran into Congressman Davis and invited him to come to do a ride on the Kickapoo Rail Trail, and he said he wants to do that in May. So I will get in touch with his office and begin looking at potential dates for him to do that. I don't think we want to make it a big production, but we do want him to have the opportunity to experience the trail so that he knows how important it is to the communities and the potential for economic development. Those kinds of infrastructure investments can bring to a community. And I think the people in St. Joe are very excited about it. And perhaps if he sees that, he can relay that to Congressman Shimkus, who has not been as eager to experience these things in his communities. So I think overall the lobbying went well. We weren't doing any really big hard asks this year. There were a lot of really good sessions, some good bike tours. I did a bike tour that took us to the NPR headquarters, and we got to tour their offices, and they are a gold bicycle friendly business. I forget what level they are. They're pretty high ranked. Now I can't remember which level it was. They have great locker rooms, indoor bike parking, showers, and it's a really nice facility they have for people. And there were quite a few bikes in there. It wasn't especially nice weather. It was cold and misty, so there were still a lot of people. And in the summer, they had to expand it because they had so many people biking in. And the infrastructure in DC continues to expand. It's a pretty good place to bike a number of locations. The other thing is they had the dockless electric bike share. I did not use it, but some people did and really liked it. So that's an interesting development that we may have that opportunity here. So I think the Bike Summit's always a great experience, and you learn a lot, and it's very busy. And every night I signed up to go do a night bike tour, and ran completely out of steam and had to cancel out. So for those who were young and more energetic, you could have fun into the evening.
Or you train for it.
Brew tours.
Well, I think I'm just getting too old to do 16, 18-hour days. After
Yeah.
12, I was just like, I was deflated.
Yeah, Washington did get their bicycle gold certificate at the meeting.
Yeah, that's right. They
They were presented with that.
Yeah. That's
I
right.
went to the National Geographic tour.
Oh, that would be fun too.
And they were, I think they were gold too. They had the indoor bike parking and locker rooms and stuff. They had some stackable parking.
Yeah,
were
they had the
experimenting
two-tiered.
with.
Was theirs two-tiered or?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, oh, they also had a map, like, so that people could put pins on the map wherever they were coming from. They have like
that's
1,000 employees there. It's
NPR
really-
did that too.
So then you could connect with people that were coming from your area, and if you had questions about what route they took, or if you I guess if you had to drive and wanted to carpool, you could probably do that. But that's, yeah, I thought that was kind of a nice idea for a big organization.
That's a great idea.
And, especially route finding, I'm surprised how many people, even in town here, from going across town,
Yep.
won't ride because they don't
They don't know how to
They
do
don't
it.
know
Yeah,
about
they think
the
you have
good
to drive
routes or
on
something.
Springfield.
Yeah.
The other thing that I just wanted to mention, because Ed mentioned it, is that at the Illinois Bike Summit, they'll be announcing, the plan is to announce the ITEP awards then, so it's May 7th.
7th, yep,
Yeah.
yep.
May
Mhm.
7th.
Yeah, NPR gave us, NPR Net gave us. We got presents.
And I'm not, I think I sent an email, I don't know if I ever got a response about paying the registration fee. I guess in some years in the past, the city's paid the registration fee for Illinois Bike Summit for people that go. Do you know anything about that, Craig?
We would pay if a person wasn't a part of another organization.
Okay,
So if somebody worked for, university or MTD or the city of Champaign, we wouldn't pay those, but
correct.
The university will pay for me to go to the bike summit?
well, I'm not saying, we're just saying if there's another organization that you're,
That you represent.
yeah.
That you represent.
Yeah.
If you're
Not
one of the
representing.
liaison people.
I'm on the board of Ride Illinois and I had to pay my registration, so.
I think
But
it
it-
means if you're one of the liaison members
Right.
of the
Yeah,
BPAC.
right.
So I guess if anybody wants to go, you have to pay your own transportation or get there on your own and everything, but
I'm taking the bus.
why don't you let us know if you're gonna go, and we can look into how many we can fund.
Probably good to funnel that through you, and then you could send it
Okay.
to staff.
Yeah, why don't you let me know if you're planning on going, and then we can see. Because I know when it was here, I think we sponsored it,
Right.
and we may have got some free registrations with that or something.
Mhm. Yeah, I think we did.
Okay, any questions on the bike summits?
So Bill, you had mentioned, so there's some talk of raising the fuel tax?
Yeah,
Not the legislators.
Yeah,
They all
the,
said that is not going to happen.
yeah, the speaker of the
What about
House.
vehicle miles tax or anything like that? Did they talk
Well,
about that?
there's talk about that, but during the committee meeting, that came up, and they were like, that's still years off, because there's a lot to figure out how to implement that. And the thing to do now immediately would be to raise the gas tax. So far, the Speaker of the House has shot it down, but the President seemed open to it, and he was supposed to be sending people to Capitol Hill. So I wouldn't rule it out. So, okay, new business. Lincoln Avenue and Springfield Avenue resurfacing project, Craig.
What makes you think it needs resurfacing?
So I wanted to talk to you about a project we plan to do this year. This is just a big overview here of the limits. This would be Green Street down here, which would be the MCOR project. We would just be to the north of that here, all the way up through Springfield, through Stoughton,
Oh, wow.
Maine, Clark, and then end right at University. The
Wow.
DOT has University Avenue planned later on.
All of that's resurfacing?
Yeah, and then the other thing is, Springfield, 1 block west to Gregory, right in here, over through Busey to just west of Kohler.
Is that all one project, or is it?
Yeah, it's one project, but it's got 2 separate sources of funding.
Wow.
We're going to use state motor fuel tax and local gas tax monies. We're looking at probably at about a 1.6, 1.7 million dollar job. Right now, we currently have about 1.4 funded, with some additional requests here in the upcoming budget to close the gap.
So it goes from Green to which street north?
A university,
To University. Is it just past there or just to there?
it just to the.
Just to there.
Yeah, and I can zoom in when I'll get some
I
other
got it.
exhibits. The primary purpose of the project is it's a resurfacing project. That's what's driving it, the condition of the pavement. I mean, you can see that really evident on Springfield Avenue if you run through here or ride through here. It's fairly rough. There are sections of Lincoln that are rough, but that's the primary thing that's driving. On the resurfacings, we basically take off the top layer, and then there's usually a base. We're determining that right now. They're out. We have sub-consultants out coring the pavement, and there's usually a concrete base underneath. We keep that, so we just take the top layer off, put it back, and restripe. That's basically a typical project. With a resurfacing, we're obligated by law to follow the American Disabilities Act. As a result of that, we will be doing improvements at all the ramps throughout the project, curb ramps. We will also be, we're also obligated to provide at least one continuous sidewalk zone that's ADA compliant. We will be doing that on the west side of the road, so it'll be the west zone on Lincoln, and then on Springfield it'll be the south zone. On the opposite side, so the east side, we will fix basically non-functioning areas that are either heaved or we have severe cross slopes and things like that. One of the unique things that my staff and I are going to do, we've been waiting for the weather to warm up, and I've got some guys in training, is I've contacted Pace, and they're going to be supplying some manual wheelchairs to us. We, a year or so ago, we took a luncheon with Pace and sat in wheelchairs, used those wheelchairs to help us learn what it was like to be to navigate. So we're going to do that mainly to sensitize my staff as engineers and technicians to their plight. We will do that primarily on the east side of the road, so we'll be able to sense those areas that maybe we need to fix, that, you know, otherwise it's sort of a subjective call. We don't have enough funding to fix everything, but at least we could fix the areas. I mean, one of the things that caught my attention at the luncheon that I was at was that areas that visually looked okay to me, maybe cross-slope wise, were challenging nevertheless when you're in a wheelchair.
There are some spots on the east side that are very narrow with concrete walls. Is there any chance that we can expand the width there?
That's beyond the scope of the project.
Because it would require moving the curb.
And that would require right-of-way acquisition. And that's
We could
something-
narrow lanes.
Well, I want to talk about that,
Okay.
but no, that's beyond the scope of the project. We will basically make it, you know, ADA compliant throughout. Let me zoom back out here. Let me escape out. I'm gonna tell you what, I'm gonna move down closer to the, is that the trick, Kevin? Is it pushing its wireless effort?
If you're really close, sometimes it messes up. You gotta find like a sweet spot.
I felt that lag, you know, when you're,
Yeah, and actually it is a new wireless keyboard and mouse, so.
Should be working better.
there.
Yeah.
Now
Wow,
I feel
look
like
at
I'm
that.
racing. So, you know, like, as an example, there's a section of sidewalk here,
Yeah, that's the section.
right near these trees. And I'll just give you an example, that we'll be replacing in entirety.
Oh, okay.
when you,
It was on the
Yeah.
other side of the street that I've seen
Yeah.
people struggle.
this area's been, I mean, it's just ponded with water during
Mm.
rain
Oh,
events.
yeah.
It's heaved because of the trees. We do
Mhm.
plan to keep the trees, but we'll adjust the sidewalk grade.
Okay, good. The other side of the streets where I've seen people especially, that's the part that's been really difficult.
Right. So the scope is to resurface the road, to meet ADA requirements, but we also took traffic counts at each intersection, video counts, and recorded the pedestrians crossing. We saw some,
Mm-hmm,
a fair number of pedestrians crossing Stoughton
mm-hmm.
and also Main. Main
Yeah.
is identified in the bicycle
Yeah.
master plan as
Yep.
a point improvement. So we want to address that with this project while we're doing this
That's
work.
awesome.
It's also a major connecting piece, or you could also say an obstacle, getting from
Yeah.
the
Yes,
university to
Oh, yeah,
downtown
definitely. It's
Urbana
awful.
and vice
Mhm.
versa.
Mhm.
So I'll talk about that here in a minute,
So many
and the planned
engineering
improvements for
students.
that. So while we're at this, we want to address these point improvements. But the other thing that's not in the scope is to do a road diet. We want to keep this median throughout here.
Mhm.
That is where the light poles are. We don't have
Mhm.
space, as Cynthia
Sure.
indicated, to put it on the backside here because that would require easements and such. We have power lines through here.
Mhm.
But we do plan to narrow the lanes up. Currently, right now, it's 30 mile an hour speed
Mhm.
limit. We want to keep that.
Mhm.
But we are going to go to, there somewhere between 11 and a half to 12 and a half foot lanes. We're gonna go to 11-foot
Yay.
lanes all the way throughout. Some of the observations, I'll just kind of zoom back out here.
So how does the narrowing work? Does the median get wider?
Well, you guys are pretty excited, aren't you?
We are very
Super
excited.
excited. So excited.
We are
Oh,
very
every time
excited
you cross
about
it,
this.
your
This is
heart
the
sinks.
university, I'm so excited.
So I just want to point out a couple issues. Let's just walk, I guess, from the south here real quick. So we're gonna be, I'll zoom in a little bit. We'll be just north of Green right here, which is where the M4 project stops.
Okay.
And then we're gonna go up here, and I did look at whether or not I could,
Bring those curves out.
yeah, and I can't do that and meet the guidelines that I have to follow. However, the one thing we are going to do is put new pedestrian push buttons in.
So what are the
There's been some
guidelines that are
complaints.
prohibiting it?
The guidelines have to do with the design vehicles, and really it comes down to the buses that go through the intersection. So I can show you an exhibit with that, but the buses have to be able to turn there too.
Sure.
And that's what's driving a lot of the curves where they're at. Actually, they're deficient with the current design guidelines. They need to be actually wider. We're not going to do that. We're going to keep them the way they are. They're just fairly large at this point. But that's basically the improvements we're going to do here is we'll do new ramps. We'll also do the head push buttons. As we go up through Stoughton, one thing that we noticed was there's a fair amount of pedestrians that cross at Stoughton. And we did an analysis using the Champaign-Urbana crosswalk guidelines, which is a new document that the Champaign-Urbana Urbanized Area Transportation Study adopted. We've been following the City of Boulder guidelines with Public Works. Those guidelines are wrapped into the other guidelines. And basically what we found was that there's enough pedestrians here to warrant basically an enhanced crossing, and I'll talk about that here in a minute.
Yay.
There are no plans to do any bike improvements at this location. The bicycle master plan does not have any, like Stoughton's not considered a bike route
Mhm.
or anything like that.
But you've got pedestrians crossing, so you address it.
Up here at Main, and I'm gonna walk through the problems that we saw, and then I'll walk through the
Mhm.
solutions.
Mhm.
At Main here, it's amazing the amount of pedestrians and bicyclists that cross here. In a
Lack of
12-hour
anything.
count, we had over 350
I believe that.
collectively. Anytime that I've gone out there, there's usually some type of pedestrian. The other day, it was a family with stroller and
Wow.
young one.
Mm-hmm.
There are you know, serious bicyclists that are trying to cross through here. There are a lot of people walking, and then they basically will walk, they'll come over and stand at this island and kind of jog out of their way and then kind of go back. I even see them crossing mid-walk, which we don't want to encourage. So there's definitely a need for east-west
that's where I
crossing
cross.
here.
Going north.
At Clark, we ran the analysis, there is not enough warrant to drive improvements, but I want to show you what I've come up with as an interim solution. Another key component here is there's a potential development that could happen in this corner.
Oh, good.
It's not for certain, but we don't want to be putting city resources in when we may have to change some things at this
With the
corner.
sidewalk. Okay.
Let me,
On the other side on Clark Street, is that brick sidewalk, is that one you have to preserve? That one's always in pretty bad shape.
I'll be talking about that too. So I'm gonna open up another drawing here. And we'll talk a little bit about each location, and then I'll go back to Lincoln and Springfield and we'll talk about that. So we'll go ahead and walk backwards down. This would be Clark here. I've got some fill on. This is basically a work in progress, so there's a lot of sketching in the lines here. But these would be the crossings in blue here for pedestrians.
So you're
To
gonna roll that
cross.
on the south side?
Yeah, we're gonna roll it to the south, but however, though, able-bodied can always cross through here. We're gonna be narrowing the lanes down to 211 by keeping the outside and widening the middle. The middle is important because we need the crossing area.
Yeah.
Right.
Now,
Yeah.
technically, this will be a striped area right here. We won't put a refuge at this point. But it's designed such that we could put a refuge island in the event that there's a need at a later time, pending development over here or other needs. The crossing guidelines basically say 20 pedestrians in a peak hour. Here it was half that. But, or it's 18 in 2 hours or 15 in 3.
So how are you gonna strike the crosswalk, or are you?
We will not at this location, I'm just
Okay.
showing you the zone.
Okay.
We won't stripe the crosswalk, what we will have though is ramps here.
Okay.
And then it'll be sort of
Okay.
a quasi refuge, and then a ramp here. And then I am gonna pull out the bump out on the corner to tighten the radius
Good.
through here, but again, we didn't wanna
What's
put
going
city
on there?
resources
Okay.
over there.
This is cool.
Greg, I'd just like
Sure.
to say one thing about this. This is what I'm considering the entrance to people feeling like they're beginning to be on university property and they need to slow down. I am of course disappointed it's 30 miles an hour, but I like that this almost feels like it's a gateway. I'm in a different place. I need to drive a little different. I need to be a little bit more aware of other things, and that's.
Yep.
I just want to say, I like that that's kind of how this is, it's going to have that impression hopefully on people that they need now, you know, I'm coming off the speedway of University Avenue and now it's slowing down.
Yep.
Right.
So, we just,
I do plan here in the next couple of weeks after spring break to do a before speed study. At least we'll have that data, and then we'll be able to do a post study as well.
Craig, one more thing.
Sure.
Where, if you go back up, how far away is the median from the crossing line?
Well, it'll be, so if I zoom in, and again, there won't be a dedicated crossing,
Right.
but the median would be right here,
Okay.
which is farther back. But
Stripe it
the
out.
striping will include an area that is 6 foot wide
Okay.
or so, which a pedestrian then at least has a safe zone to be in.
So they don't go
Right.
the
Right.
Okay.
crossing.
So this one's sort of a modified improvement. Would have loved to have done more, but again, we're somewhat constrained.
I like the way that looks.
But
oh, and will there be lighting, or are we gonna
No.
keep this?
the lighting will stay the same. There's no funds to do the lighting. So what I wanted to show you here was kind of a interesting concept. In some ways, it takes the the principles of a protected intersection into play. We just don't have the north-south movement on there. So what we're doing is we have right now a wider
Yep.
location here.
The current
And so the
radius.
whole thing kind of just goes and widens out. We do have parking on this side of the street and over here too. So what we've done is we pulled the curb line in and tightened the zone through here to narrow the lanes up, which then helps with the crossing distance through here. All this green area would be basically lawn area at this time. And then east-west, what we've done is we can have a bicyclist come through here. They can, and again, this is conceptual, there's some details gotta be worked out. They can then merge into basically a crossing that's a multi-use path crossing through this zone.
Cool.
So there's a sidewalk here, so this would all come together,
Nice.
How
cross
wide would
over.
it be?
It would be 8 foot wide through
Great.
this zone.
Mhm.
This would be 5 through
Uh-huh.
here. This existing walk, we would make that 5. It's 4 or 5 depending upon its location. The crossing points would be enhanced points. A crossing which would basically have the diamond, either in this location, it'll be
With the
ped
LED.
bike with a flashing LED that is activated by a push button. So once that's pushed, then this whole thing would flash at some type of rate throughout the duration. We'd also put push buttons in the middle here. There'll also be signs here. That will provide your constraint feel. It's a little bit like Windsor and Vine down there at Meadowbrook. A little bit similar, just not having the RFBs. We would have done RFBs,
We can't.
but we can't. But we can do this other, and we're investigating those right now. We'll probably be one of the first communities in central Illinois to use this type of signage. So we've been doing some research on that.
And the median will be more than paint.
Yes, the median will be, at this point, what I've got is median noses that pull out. I've done some design, but I also have to talk to the fire department a little bit about it's a little tight here. But we will have signage in the middle with a post with the warning signs. These will all be solar signs, which is also a nice amenity. So again, a sign here, double back signs here, and then a sign over here. Same thing on this side. So these are basically double crossings. So then, like I said, you can go through and then you can merge back into the traffic lane that way. Serious bicyclists would be able to operate like they normally do if they choose to do that. They just wouldn't have the enhanced crossing there. But by necking things down, hopefully that helps them to be able to get across
Well, if you
too.
want to stop traffic, you'll have to go over there and push the button, so.
How, Craig, how wide is that median? Would the median be wide enough for a bike to
Yeah,
stop there?
yeah, so it's a little over 6 foot wide.
Okay.
So your bike, is kind of less than 6,
Yeah.
just barely.
Mhm.
So it's enough for a bike to be able to actually
Maybe not
physically
mine.
And a
stack.
mom in a stroller.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
special case.
Yeah. Well, yeah, if you have a trailer, it's not gonna work, but I think it'll give some safe refuge. We would rebuild the
Still wait.
median back to
Yeah.
the point and neck it back
Well,
down.
people would stop. That's, with the signs there, people are gonna stop anyway.
Right. So that's what we have planned here.
Really exciting.
Yeah, this is super exciting.
And then down at Stoughton, sure, go
The
ahead.
flashing lights, do they just stop traffic on Lincoln, or do they also stop traffic on Main?
Just
Stop
on
signs on Main.
There's stops on Main.
Yeah.
Existing stops, so it'd be flashing lights only on Lincoln. They would go through the duration of the time to allow the ped or bike to get through. We'd set the timing for a ped to walk at the walking speed is usually 3.5 feet per second. And then they would go off by themselves. So they'll sit dormant and then be activated through what we
That's
call
what you
active.
need there.
Yeah. At Stoughton, we took counts, and there's currently a northbound left turn lane that we think we can eliminate
Good.
and put a pedestrian island
Yay.
at this location to help pedestrians to get across. This will significantly help, I think, the crossing movement here.
Mhm.
Again, we're going to consolidate them to one location. There wasn't enough volume to drive to. It'll drive it to one. Able-bodied could still cross over here if they chose, and there's a lot of students that cross. This would be a painted area up here, but down here, this would be a physical median.
That's great.
Somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 foot long. But the northbound left turning movement was not, there's not enough movement there to warrant that left turn lane.
Will
And
there be
then,
an activated beacon there
Yep.
too?
yeah, so this will have enhanced crossing.
Yeah.
There's a fair amount of pedestrians, that surprised me a little bit.
Yeah, there are.
But, there's a lot that live over here and they go
Apartments.
back and forth
Mhm.
across here.
Yep, there are a lot of apartments down there.
I think to Amy's point, I think what we're doing here is we're sort of putting a stake in the road, so to speak,
Mhm.
that we're
Shared space.
a shared space, really.
Yep.
At least it's a step in a positive direction. There would be a lot of other things we'd love to do, but we just don't have the resources for it, the funding resources. But I think this is, we've talked about it internally. It's fairly important, I think, here to try to do these types of projects when we can.
Absolutely.
One thing that we do have to talk about is, well, first off, does anybody have any questions about the concepts?
What are the when are you thinking of doing this?
Yeah,
We
that's
want
my
to,
question.
our plan is to get it going this year. We might not finish it entirely, but start it this year.
Because what I'm thinking might be cool is the lights are frightening. Like they're just like the paint is peeling off them.
Oh.
No, this is just go with me. Yeah, the streetlights are like the paint is falling off. It looks really bad. It looks like our city is broke. But what I'm thinking I could do once you have a better timeline on this. I don't know if streetlights have to be white, if the bases have to be white. If that's a thing, then this is a dumb idea. But what I think could happen is I could get donated paint and we could paint them fun colors. So they would almost be like these like murals, these like three-dimensional like murals. You'd have different artists do them.
Art.
Yeah, and that again
Just
will
up to,
slow
like,
down people.
Just up to where you could reach.
Uh-huh.
I think so, 5 feet, yeah. Yeah, we'd
I
have to
feel
talk
higher.
about how high it would go and what the meaning of that would be and all that, but, at least at eye level, it would all look new, because I'm really worried we're gonna have beautiful new pavement, beautiful new infrastructure, and then we're gonna have these these
They
lamp
have
posts.
bucket trucks, to paint.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I know, I was being more, but it's more like, but I just think it's a real doable project.
I wonder if the fire trucks, that would work to like sandblast it kind of with the fire.
Yeah,
You could practice it,
it's not a bad idea, yeah,
Our
we could.
engineers can take a
yeah.
look at how to get the paint on the holes.
Yeah, so that's just that's just
You'll have
something
to check
because
the
it's like I think it would
regulations.
That
also
would be
like
fun.
it would create interest. It would look like a
That'd be
community
really
art
cool.
project, and
That
it
be
would
fun.
it would make it all come together. Versus right now, it's those lampposts every time. I know it's probably just me, but I look at them and I'm like, oh, like it just looks really neglected.
Add
So-
banners too, like the ones we have along Vine.
Well, any banners, we'd have to do a structural analysis because of wind load.
Okay.
There's always a chance to do something.
We
just
could do
have to-
paint that says Cynthia Hoyle. We could have
Banner.
each lamppost could be
That's up to
dedicated to
lamppost.
someone on BPAC. We could.
That's
How about-
okay.
How about I'll do some
Yeah.
exploration and.
That'd be great.
We'll see what our options are. We'll move ahead with our project. This
Yeah,
could always be
sure.
done later.
Anytime.
too.
I think it should be done, I think it should be done kind of near that, think about if and when it would be a good time to do it and what the restrictions would be, and, because I'm sure we could get paint donated, and I'm sure I could get artists to do it. It's just more, making it all look like it's one cohesive project and not, and when would be the best time to do
You could
it.
try for a Urbana Public Arts grant too.
I just realized that as you said it out loud, that's a
Yeah.
great idea.
Yep. Absolutely.
I'm of course like, free, we can make it for free. Yeah, we could do an arts grant, that's a
Okay.
great idea.
Great
Um,
idea.
Thank you, Bill.
So, one of the things that we have to talk about is the brick sidewalks. I'm gonna jump back up to Clark here. So, we have an ordinance that says that basically we have to save any of the brick sidewalks unless and we have to go to council to get it changed if we want to change it. I want to show you what I'll do at this location right now. We'll go ahead and put in, our concrete ramps. And these in orange are the current brick sidewalks. We'll just reset those.
But
And-
isn't that based on whether the property owner wants them?
Well, it depends on the area too.
How much, what percentage of the block is already brick or something?
Yeah, it's like 60%, but they've already been identified. Let me back up a second.
So you've already figured out that you can't change them to concrete.
Yeah, let me show you here.
All right,
I like brick, but I've been convinced that for disabilities, it's.
they are not
Terrible.
good.
Yeah, I know.
I really like the brick.
So this
I
is
know, but they're
this
not
is
right.
a map that basically
Also for the elderly, really not good.
is in place
I
here
know.
that
No, I
shows
know.
all the
Our
brick
beautiful
sidewalks.
Yep.
And if we zoom in here and we go down, this red says major brick walk blocks. By city ordinance, brick sidewalks are to be repaired or
Okay.
reconstructed with bricks. Property owners may request a variance to city council. We as staff have taken that also to mean that if city staff wants to change it, we have to go to council. So when we go back up here to, this
Yep.
would be Maine right here. It's one of those locations that we've got to talk about a little bit. At Clark, when I go back to this drawing here, I don't really see an issue. We'll just remove and replace these bricks here. And here, that's fine. I think that's fairly straightforward, but let me go back. So what we've got to talk about is, I want to get your input on particularly Maine. So on the east side, this is the brick sidewalks. So my concern is we have this sweep that will occur here, and that we really, I'm gonna suggest that we do not have brick sidewalk in this zone, particularly with this sweep where the bicyclist is coming off. These are designed for 18 to 20 mile an hour for bicyclists, which is fairly good speed. Brick is fairly slick.
It's very slick if it's wet.
Yes. I think my recommendation would be that we would do this all in concrete. I'm actually looking at probably a colored concrete that'll be like, say, it's a gray. They use Champagne did that on Emcor. I've done it out on Stone
Yeah.
Creek. It's kind of a demarcation point because we
Yes.
have these driveways coming through here.
Yep,
But we'd probably stop it here and then do this in brick
okay.
back through here. Same thing here, we do this in brick. But actually, the conversion of this and this to concrete, I would need city council approval to do that.
But I think there are very valid safety reasons for changing that from brick.
Right. So that's what I wanted to ask the commission, if they was agreeance on that, agreement on that.
I think if you're coming down on the brick on a wheelchair and having trouble, when you get to that bike lane, you're gonna move into the bike lane. And then you're gonna be in
And
the
then we're
way of
gonna have
bikes,
conflicts.
potentially colliding with bikes,
Well,
so.
it's gonna be a shared space. It won't be, when we converge there, it's not gonna be separated out
Right.
between bike and ped. It's
It'll
gonna be
more
shared
like,
space.
this will be a shared, like a multi-use
Yeah.
path through here.
It's not wide enough to have
Yeah.
because you just don't have enough space for the bike.
Well, but if it stays as brick, it's gonna look like it's not shared.
Right,
Right.
exactly. And it also is a real hazard for bicyclists.
Yeah, and like the transition, the place where it goes from brick to, that's gonna be one of those parallel,
Yep, yep.
that our bike safety quiz says is the most dangerous.
And do you find as bicyclists that brick is slick?
Yes,
When it's-
and I avoid brick streets at all costs.
But it is slick when wet,
Mm-hmm.
They're
regardless.
rough, they're slow, they're
Mhm.
slick.
They
I
shake your
hate
lights
them.
off.
It's-
All right.
I really, really hate brick streets.
About a month ago, when it was really pouring out, I did see someone lose balance
Yep.
in some brick.
So
It
if
seems
I
like
went
some
to
of the
city
newer brick
council.
doesn't do that, but the old, really solid clay brick does.
So would it be safe to say that if I went to city council, I would have the support of the commission to?
Absolutely.
Shall we take a vote?
Do you need a motion from us?
I think so.
Yeah.
Now, let me talk about Stoughton
Okay,
real quick too, but these are the two critical locations.
Yep.
I think with Stoughton, we've got some flexibility here.
yeah, it's
It's
nice.
a little strange over here, there's just a small piece that's brick. that may be one that we may ask to go back, but again, we
It's
also,
so small.
the other thing though, we have to get consent from the property owner too.
Mhm.
That's another piece of this puzzle.
Is that a residential property?
This one would be, it's kind of a multifamily residential,
Probably
and I'm not
here.
sure, have to look into it a little bit more. Over here, we'd probably just go ahead and,
You redo the brick.
yeah, redo the brick, same thing, we probably won't even touch this over here.
Do you ask the property owners if they care?
Yep, we
Okay.
have to,
Okay.
we have
You
to, so
should.
the only issue would be is if the property owner was insistent that the brick goes back, then, you know, we'll have to ask council. If council says no, then I don't know at that point, we may have to,
What,
I don't know what happens at that point.
what if the property owner doesn't want the bricks?
If the property owner doesn't want the bricks, we still have to go to council to present our,
But they would be the ones petitioning?
yeah.
Okay.
So is there a motion, I guess, to convert at select locations?
I
the
move
brick
that
to
we
concrete?
recommend converting those select locations from brick to concrete.
I'll second.
Okay, moved by Sue and seconded by Cynthia to convert brick to concrete at selected
But
recommended
recommendations
locations.
where.
Based on staff recommendations.
Mhm.
Is that clear to everyone? Any discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries.
I'll abstain too, so.
Okay. I don't know if I should, I don't have to vote because it wasn't a tie.
Yes, it was unanimous.
Yeah, so you might be thinking about if needed, have somebody come to
Yeah, if you
kind
need
of speak
need us
about
to
it
come,
too.
let us
Okay.
know. But if you have it on the 7th, some of us won't be here.
I'll probably be taking it in
I'll be here.
April, as soon as I can. I guess you'll be there, right?
I'm very excited about this
I
possibility.
think at that location, it shouldn't be as controversial as it could be another location.
Yeah, 'cause the
Right.
I
property
think because
owners
it's a new
here.
treatment too of the street. That's,
Right.
I think that's really the convincing element, is it's a new treatment.
It's a new treatment and it's
So you-
combined. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not,
Yeah,
it's not
you-
like we're gonna go change every, you know, it's not a slippery slope, it's a slippery brick.
Yeah, you're
Um,
not, you're trying to make it look continuous, and the problem is like people now understand when they see green paint, it means something, and so people are gonna,
Mhm,
the reason
mhm.
why, the argument for this is that it should all be the same material. If you're trying to ask people to do the same thing in the same space and not alter course or do something
Mhm.
different, it needs to be the same material.
You know, we're not trying to go down
Yeah,
the
when you
historical
do the
districts. and-
graphic with city council, for the merged area, you might not want to differentiate the
The color.
pedestrian and bike space, because I think it makes people think there is still gonna be designated bike and ped space.
Yeah, I was doing that for flow.
I understand.
Mhm.
I guess the only thing I'm still thinking about is the potential for right hooks when you're that far
Out of the, off the.
off to the right. If you're on your bike and crossing,
But
somebody
if you-
else taking advantage of the stopped
But
pedestrian.
you've
light
got the
to turn
signal
right.
flashing there.
The people on Main are
And
gonna
you'll-
see
Bill,
that
you'll be-
necessarily.
Farther,
But they've got a
you'll
stop
be
sign.
farther in front of people
Yeah,
in
So
their
it might
cars.
be easier to see.
So, yeah, so when they're
Yeah, I think you're
looking
gonna
to
be more
look around the
visible.
corners,
As
they'll
long as
see
you're
you.
looking that direction
they'll
and
see
not
you there.
toward the traffic
But it'd be
coming on
easier
the
for you to
left.
see, what, I think with the curve coming out, it would be easier for you
Yeah,
to see.
you're further out into the field of vision
It,
of
I mean,
vehicles.
the same could be said if it was
Mhm.
mega wide still, but with it narrowed, you're farther out front, so it's easier for that to have, not happen.
Yeah, I mean, right now, what I did see was, I'd see the bicyclists come into this zone,
Mhm.
and then you have
Oh,
a
yeah.
car that would come here, and that's where I'd see.
Right, yeah, right
that
now it's.
Potential for a right hook at that location.
But with it all
Particularly
down.
here, there's a fair
Yeah.
amount that turn right here,
Mhm, mhm.
throughout.
Oh, yeah, that's like.
With the bulb out, you're moving people further out into the field of vision, which reduces the risk of right hook, and then with the signal as well.
So there won't be any markings on Main Street for lanes or.
We will,
shadows?
well, not as we not down through here, because it's actually marked as a bike route,
Mhm.
or will be marked as a bike route, but when we get to here, there will be markings through this zone. I haven't gone through the details of that, but we would
Mhm.
probably do some type of white skip dash that would direct.
Indicate, like an
or a
advisory
solid-
bike lane.
Yeah, and then get
Mhm.
you over, and then it'd become
Cool.
apparent to get through and then around.
Yay.
Okay.
Any questions then?
Craig, so you said this isn't, this is still conceptual and you're still finalizing it, or
Yeah, we're still finalizing it at this moment.
when do you anticipate a final version being available?
Well, it'll probably be, hopefully in the next month or two.
And do you have to take this to city council for approval, or is this something that the city engineer has leeway to just authorize and start construction?
We are, the way we work in Urbana is the city council approves the budget on an annual basis. This project's already in the budget, so we don't have to go back to seek additional approval. However, here, we're going to seek additional funding. We have some savings from some resurfacings last year, which is helping this, drive this additional work here. So at that point, it'll be, the additional funds will be requested in the new capital improvement plan, which will be included in the new budget, and then council would be asked to bless that. But yeah, we don't, in Urbana, we don't, I know it's a little different, like Champaign has to go back.
Yeah, I think when they have a final plan, they look to council to kind of give it their blessing.
Yeah. We don't, our public works director, city engineer has that authority to move forward. And that's the way it's been historically throughout time.
Does your capital improvement plan, does that have like 10 years worth of projects?
It has 5.
Oh, 5?
We used to do 10, and we found that due to increasing cost, we
Couldn't predict
work.
them.
Yeah.
So we do 5, and every year we update it.
What's after the Lincoln Avenue overlay project? Is there?
Well, it'd be Washington and Vine is slated for resurfacing. That project, we have some serious pavement issues
Yeah.
there,
I'm getting to the bike lane for a little way there.
and we want to seal that one up before we lose it.
Pretty rough.
And then
Race Street, Washington.
we have Race,
and
Washington and
Illinois.
California, and those two might be coupled together. We have the funding for Race right now. And then we have Fairlawn from Anderson to Vine, which is right by the middle school there. That's a bus route that the
Yeah, the
pavement
buses
is
just chew it up.
really beaten up. I will say this though, and this is probably the first that Bill will hear this, but our MCOR project, we have had some increased cost, and it's likely that some of those will be delayed and kicked back a year. So,
Hey, one last question on this. We voted to make a motion on the brick sidewalks. Should we make a motion on the design? That way, if like some of the
Okay.
neighbors complain, you can say, oh, I took it to the BPAC and they supported it.
Yeah.
But I guess, I guess maybe the motion would be to continue to develop the concept, and then when you have a final version, you can email it back out to everybody, or I don't know how we want to do that. Because I don't think it needs to come back to BPAC,
Before we do that, have you done design for Springfield, the intersection at Springfield in terms of the pedestrian improvements? Is anything gonna change?
the only thing that'll change there is new ramps.
Okay.
Let me show you, I didn't get back to that, but let me show you.
As far as public input goes, I think before we kind of thrown around the idea of putting out flyers of people that are crossing there, it sounds like the design is kind of already been, that looks like a good design, looks like something you guys have thought a lot about. So would it just be for a matter of educating people crossing there and riding there, that this is what's gonna?
Yeah, this is what you're expected, because it's gonna be so different.
There's different ways of handling projects, and we have a small staff. We do, all this work here is done by me and my staff. I'm actually down an engineer, so I'm playing engineer, designer and manager at the same time. But we are trying to streamline things, and I think part of the public input process is this here. At least it's advertised out publicly.
It is.
So public.
If perhaps it was controversial and you
Yeah.
folks didn't like it, and, we wanted to seek more input, we could do that. It just would probably slow it down, and we wouldn't be able to get it going. There are a couple things, though, that we have to, some hoops that we have to cross here. We still have easements. We don't think we'll have any property acquisition, but we have easements to correct driveway slopes and things like that. So we have to work through those. We also have what is called a preliminary environmental site assessment that we have to get done. And they're screening there for special waste, and then we have to put provisions in the contract if we run across that. We have to do that on any motor fuel tax project, so we have to do that yet. But here, what I wanted to show, there's a lot of lines here, but basically we have a program that's called AutoTurn that allows us to run, these are called swept paths. There's a lot of lines here, but basically this is what you would call a bus or what they call a 50-foot trailer. There are two sets of lines. So what you look at is the right turning, and you can see how you don't want to get it over into this other side of the opposing traffic. That simply is why the intersection is the way it is if you look at it. It's already encroaching a little bit as it's going. This is an oversteer. But that's what's driving a lot of these corners. I don't have another layer. I do have it in CAD, but I don't have it turned on. If we actually ran the design vehicle, they call it, we would clip the corner across. So we a lot of times will ask for variances to deviate. When we did Maine and Stoughton and Clark, those are actually designed with variances in mind because they actually want you to go bigger. We don't do that in Urbana. We've gone historically smaller. What we designed for is what they call a single unit vehicle at the other intersections, which is basically something like a UPS truck, those type of things. And then we also look at passenger cars. The single-use vehicles are very infrequent on the rest of the corridor, going east and west.
Right.
So we don't let them control. They can encroach into the opposing lane because there's not enough traffic to really be of concern. This one here, though,
What
is
speed is it based on?
usually it's anywhere from 3 to 10 mile an hour. We designed this for 5.
Okay,
It's a 5 mile an hour speed.
okay.
So that was actually one of the first things that I looked at when I ran this was, is there a way that we could tighten these corners up? And as you can see here, we just can't do it. I wish we could. There are a fair amount of pedestrians here crossing.
Yes, there are.
Probably one of the biggest things that's gonna be a plus though is you can see that the pavement markings are worn.
Yep, so it'll help.
And it's just hard to tell where to go.
Do we have countdown heads there
We do.
already, but all four directions,
Yeah.
okay? Because I'm usually on my bike, I don't pay much attention to them. But I actually don't bike this route much, I
Right.
use,
Yeah.
I do it for fun sometimes.
I use it Maine, Green, or Illinois.
For
Get
fun.
your adrenaline up.
Also because it's so
Same thing with
rough, it
Washington.
rattles your teeth out.
Mm-hmm.
Let me go down to, so this is Gregory here.
Mm-hmm,
So this was resurfaced within the last 10 years, and we'll stop right here at this red line
mm-hmm.
and resurface this way. And then we'll go over to Busey.
It
The
goes
ramps
down
here
to
are
UC,
in
okay.
good shape. The MTD had done quite a bit of improvements at this bus stop.
Mhm, mhm.
So, again, though, we'll make the sidewalk ADA compliant through here.
Mhm,
And then we'll stop right here. This is Kohler.
mhm.
There is a plan to reconstruct or rehab Springfield here down to McCullough, which was reconstructed a couple
Mhm.
of years, within the last 10
Yeah.
years. That right here, there's severe distress in the outside lane. A couple of years ago, we had some good prices on asphalt, excuse me, and we just did a Band-Aid project. It's falling apart right now.
Mhm.
We have severe pavement issues there, saying we have some drainage problems, but that's in the 5-year plan is to rehab this section of street.
Because that's gonna take major reconstruction, not
Yeah.
resurfacing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but here the pavement's in fairly, I mean, it's rough, but we can take the top
But
off.
resurfacing will do it, yeah.
Okay.
All right? But yeah, if I could get a, if the commission feels that they would like to support this,
Oh, I
maybe it's
think we
based
do.
upon what's been presented to date.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we I guess, support, or vote.
Approve the
support.
concepts.
Yeah, and of the
Proof of
current,
concept.
yeah, the current concept, and that as you continue to develop it and you come up with the final version, email it back out to the BPAC for, final review. Yeah, and then I guess at that point, if any BPAC members have any comments, they could email it back. It's a very
Well,
long
that's
motion.
a long motion.
Yeah.
Jen.
That's super
I'm
long
looking at
motion.
Barbara's face.
So, Jeff's moved to approve the current concept and ask that it be sent to BPAC members
Yeah.
for additional comment.
Good.
There you go.
I'll second.
So, and Leo seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Hip hip hooray.
All right, thank you.
Craig, just in general, is it worth it to think about how this might interact with a KRT extension in the future? Or is that just so far out that it's
I
not?
think that's fairly far out. However, though, there's been some discussion with the Park District about maybe more of a feasibility study throughout town to go from where it's ending now to western limits. So I think this is a little bit independent at this time, but I think
But it
that
is Main Street.
that kind of study is needed.
Yeah, just a
It does seem-
general high-up study to
Yeah.
start identifying some things, but nothing super detailed.
Sure.
It does seem likely that it won't stay right on the railroad track the whole way through, and like through Lincoln and University, probably won't go diagonally across that intersection, and probably be rerouted
There's
some
not
way
space there, yeah.
to avoid that intersection, but.
That
Yeah,
intersection's a
that'd be
big
great if
problem.
we
Oh,
could
yeah.
get going on some kind of long-range concept with the Park District.
Yay.
Okay, next is, were you finished?
I'm finished.
Yeah,
Okay,
good job,
great.
Mrs. Wood.
Thank you. Cynthia, good
Would you like
talk
to
about.
put anything in? Or
No, I think I'm just gonna, we haven't got anything to show you yet. However, I've been talking about doing public education prior to the installation of our two-stage left turns at, they will be at Green and Wright, and Green and Goodwin. And so, today, in fact, my interns and I talked, and we're going to begin working on this. And, design guides, here we go. So I emailed these folks today to get permission to use their graphics, which they make available to people. And they just ask that you can't use it for profit. And, but I think there's no reason for us to reinvent this. We should just use what's out there. And so they've got these graphics that we can utilize to help explain, and my intern is very talented. I asked her to put together like a one-page sheet, like what is it, where is it, how do I use it, with some graphics, and we'll take a look at it internally at MTD, and then we'll share it with the cities and the university, and also there's some videos. We're going to be looking through videos. There's some out there that we can use. We'll try and find one that doesn't say the name of the city, because that, I think, confuses people. But to give people an idea, if we can't find one with that in, we'll just say, here's a video of how it worked in San Francisco or Seattle or wherever it is. And then Lily said there's some students on campus who might like to do one after we get ours in, but they have to be in for us to make a video of how they would work. So we can include this.
One of them's your son. He's interested. He is. He's interested in doing a video.
Yes, he is. And yeah, so he might have to wear a helmet if he's going to be in the video. So these are nice graphics that we can use. It has some information that we can use. It also has these sorts of things. We could pull this out So that gives people that kind of information. Let me also,
I think a video would be good.
a video would be good, and I have looked at those. Now, why is it, here we go.
It seems like I've seen videos. on
Oh,
bike
I was
paths.
looking at them, there are several of them too. Oops, can't type. Arc, 2-stage, left, turn, box, video. Yeah, we looked at this one today, and there are some more out there. I'd like for there to be less talking heads and more just visual overview of, what we're talking about. So we don't have speakers in here so you can hear it, but you can easily Google this yourself and take a look. The other problem is like one of the really nice ones was a cycle track, and I thought that would be super confusing to people because we don't have a two-way cycle track. We've got one way coming in, cycle tracks coming in. And so, but we'll take a look at all of the options and decide what our best one is. And then that way we can all post this, push it out to the media. We could probably do it during Bike Month so that people have some idea of what's going on prior to the installation in June, because Craig said that's likely when that will happen.
Could we have like demonstration parties where we go out and do it?
We could do that, yeah. We could have that and have it be a media event.
I've
but-
been to one demonstration party too where they had a brass band. Which was fun, in Chicago.
I'm kind of seeing like a dance, like,
Right.
like how people do dances.
Do it in costume.
I think we should do a left-hand turn.
It was a brass band in costumes.
Yeah, so here's
So
another.
funny that you mentioned that.
But,
thank
you know.
for the newsletter.
You could do
Do-
an augmented reality app that you hold up at the intersection.
Yes.
See how it works.
And you can see that this one has a sort of a, if not the usual male bike rider demonstrating for us, which is nice. So, we can do more than one in terms of linking to these so that people can see how they work. So, those are some of the, we've got some other graphic materials that we've looked at, and we'll be putting that together and sort of circulating it around to the partners and hopefully get that out there.
So why are these safer, or why does this happen?
Thanks for asking, I was gonna ask.
Say what?
Is it safer, or is it supposed to be less intimidating? Or
The
both?
majority of cyclists are not going to get into the left turn lane to make a left turn, especially and
Especially
there is not
there.
even space at green and right for people to make that merge safely to the left turn lane unless they exit the cycle track before the bus stop. And we'd really
Very
rather
tricky.
that they not do that. I will show you, if you've been out there, the merge space is, in my opinion, extraordinarily tight. And
We are getting rid of that cycle track though with them, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
no, what's there now?
Oh,
What
yeah,
The
yeah.
cycle track, when it merges out,
Right.
the space between where it hits the roadway and the crosswalk is very, very short. You
Right.
simply could
No, I
not,
know.
and actually I'm worried that before we get these boxes in there, we're gonna have people trying to pull that maneuver with buses also trying to turn right at those locations. And so I'm worried about that maneuver. It hopefully won't be that way very long. And so we can, I think it's here, isn't it? Is this
Yeah, I
would be
think
the
so.
place to look?
Yeah.
Has the diagrams. Do you know which one is the best?
Probably I don't know if it has,
Concept phase one, typical section, I need the intersection, design.
let's see, maybe it's under Project 4.
Project four.
Because that would be when it get completely rebuilt.
No.
So you'd have to back out of this one.
Back out,
Back
okay.
out.
And go to,
And go import projects and then go forward.
got it.
But if you're a good,
Thank you.
you know,
I just
savvy.
hop on
Gotcha.
Yeah, if you're savvy.
There should be down
get over here and then
Okay.
Same thing,
Okay.
once you get to the bottom.
Okay, right in green.
Fourth to right, no, it may be Armory, fourth to right. See if it
Well,
does. that.
Armory is gonna, I don't think that one's gonna do it for us. That's that one.
But it might
Yeah,
go,
Bright
Go
green
scroll
is-
up.
scroll up,
You think it
Definitely
did?
is the one that's-
can it go up? No, then maybe it's the other one then.
Maybe you just didn't put it on there.
Uh,
This is too messy.
I don't remember.
I've got
But
the
there's just
final
not
drawings in
space
there,
there,
but
okay.
there's just not a lot of space. And I doubt that, if I thought that Google Earth had
Now it's
Actually been back.
8:51.
out and done any, I would pull it up on,
I can't recall because that's on the other side of Wright Street.
We're cutting
which
time
is-
pretty
yeah, we are.
That's the dark side, so we don't go over there.
Yeah, that's
We don't go there.
But that's the
I've got
reason
final
why,
plans
it's way too tight to merge into the left turn lane. I
Unless
cannot
you merge.
spell. Yeah,
The prior time before that or something.
Right, that's,
So we could do a two-stage turn in tutus.
uh-huh.
or you wait for the pedestrian signal,
Nice.
or you walk
Yeah.
away.
Nice. Everyone wants to wear a tutu.
Yeah, it's just,
Mhm.
I'm not gonna get what we need here.
Okay,
It's
so-
old, it's gonna be old pictures, so.
So what's the, what do you need from the committee for the public education portion?
Yeah, I think we could bring the materials to the committee to take a look at before we stick them out there and get your input. And it was sort of an informational, item for you, and then we'll try and bring some of it to you and get your input. If you see great stuff, by the way, if you run across something, please send it our way. Because we would like to pull all this and have something, I don't know whether we can look at it at our April meeting or if it would be in our May meeting, but
What's the dissemination plan for that?
I think the cities, the university, and MTD will be using social media and maybe some paid media to help give people that information. Public access, we could run videos on public access. In other communities, if you put new infrastructure in and you do not give people information on, you can get real serious blowback.
Yes.
And in some places, it's been so bad, they've been having to take infrastructure out. So, it's because people don't know what the heck it is or
Yes.
how to
Right,
behave around
and
it.
that is the kind of thing that'll
Yes.
freak people out. Like,
Yeah.
what?
And they also want to feel like it wasn't one person's idea. They want
Right.
to feel like this is actually a planned
Mhm.
thing and it's
And
for the
why?
better of the community and we all agreed on it and yeah.
And
it's
why
a-
did we
it's
do
a-
it? Like
it's a
Amy
tough
said, why is it
intersection.
there? And it's because it's pretty darn hard to make a left turn
Yeah.
at these
But
locations.
yeah, you just don't want, like, for MCOR, like,
Mhm.
when people have, a lot of people have, some people have said not nice things about it, and,
About
I,
MCOR?
of course, defend it, but it's like, yeah, we definitely have to be like, this is good for the community,
Mhm,
it's,
mhm.
community choice, it's,
Does anybody have a email list for everybody that's registered their bicycle, something like that?
We do require emails for.
But they can send it out in their
everybody
weekly or their,
Yeah, that gets to a lot more
Yeah,
people.
yeah. What do you call it? I forgot.
E-week,
E-week.
grad
We see
links,
that.
and then
Okay.
also there are certain mass mail things you can do with undergraduates.
Mhm. And we'll have to do a lot of our bus operators already are asking how, they don't know what to do around what's already in place. So in the summer, they do refresh every year, and so that'll be an opportunity to share with them what this is, why it's there,
And what
and
to
how
do
it
with it.
works. Yeah. Because, it's still confusing for everybody because it's not complete yet.
Yep, that's what I told them.
Okay.
I don't need to talk about I talked about the fact sheets last time. They are posted publicly, and so we have those available for anybody to take a look at. They're on the Safe Routes to School website. And if you want to share them, let me know. I'm happy to provide that to you. And, yeah, that's all there is on that one.
Are you talking about these two?
Yeah, those two. Yeah, because we've got both for kids and grown-ups now, or I guess youth and grown-ups.
Okay, thanks. Announcements?
So our gold-friendly, bicycle-friendly community status expires this year. And we are going to be applying in August, reapplying, so the city will be.
I'll be happy to help.
Okay, good.
And sometimes in the past, what we did was staff filled out up to a point and then got together people from other organizations to go through it because a lot of information is in people's heads that might.
We have
might be a bad-
tentatively got approval with Regional Planning Commission to go ahead, and they filled out the application last time. And then we could then have them do the initial
Great.
legwork and then
Fill in.
seek
Wonderful.
input, yeah. But that is due here in August, so it's hard to believe it's 4 years
Wow,
already.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so
That's
we'll
due in
have
August.
passed our wayfinding plan by then.
I would hope, yeah.
And I think our pedestrian plan too will be to our benefit in that. And then MCOR's work, I think.
And then we also have Vision Zero listed in our
Yes,
bike plan,
that's
which
correct.
hopefully we might have declared the city a Vision Zero city. And in that interest, they have a handout for, we talked about this last time, here's a handout going over what's needed to be a Vision Zero city, what's involved. The back is the simple criteria, and the front is the more complex criteria. Did you have another one, Craig? I didn't, it's just segueing
Oh,
off
go
your
ahead, take over.
comment.
No, I didn't have anything, so. that's all.
Yeah, okay, so, we didn't get it on the agenda for this meeting, but in order to, pass a resolution on that, we need to have it on the
On the
agenda.
agenda, right.
So I would like to see it on the agenda for the next meeting, and then that, here is a very rough draft of a possible kind of resolution. It was drafted there with the idea that we would have a Vision Zero plan, when actually you don't have to have the plan. You only have to have a intention to have one. We already have shown very strong capabilities at developing plans. I would hope a Vision Zero plan. It has been done in-house in Columbia, Missouri, which is a city with, tons and tons of resources, so they didn't contract it out.
Well, they, one of their city council members basically did it.
Well, we have Cynthia here, so. And, so anyway, it's a very coordinated effort where the city has decided, okay, no more deaths. And I think we need to do that rather than wait for the next death, because we already have too many. We just don't need another one to galvanize us. We already have it as
We're
a
galvanized.
goal in our plans. They are gonna look at that for our bike-friendly. Have we actually started achieving those goals? They're gonna look at it for our next bike-friendly thing. So this is basically a statement of political will and coordination. Now, I don't know exactly how we'll get public health in this, because they haven't been terribly active. Maybe Bike to Work, because we need public health to be represented as well as the police. And that's what we're missing. We already have engineering and
You mean?
civilian task force.
In what capacity would they be?
As a part of the Vision Zero task force.
I don't think there would be any problem with that. I think all we have to do is contact Julie.
Should be,
She has always been, anytime I've contacted her about a safe routes to school thing, she has, immediately responded and said yes, and written letters of support and whatever else. So there's no convincing that has to be done. I think it's just communicating. Yeah, I don't think that'll be a problem at all.
Health or is Julie Police?
She's the head of the Champaign County Public Health.
And I think one of the main resource, from the resources point of view, now I forgot what I was gonna say. There's the report and the analysis, yeah, and we talked about that last time, that the data isn't even collected, that would lead so that would be a resource effort to get that data collected, that you need to really pinpoint what are the behaviors specifically, and then the police turn around and what are the places. And the police turn around with the aim of reducing serious injuries, not with the aim of filling out a certain number of tickets or anything like that. It's very targeted to where are the injuries and where are the behaviors.
Yeah.
And we can decide that in a task force that involves stakeholders from
I
all
think that's a good plan.
representations to make sure that it doesn't feel like, somebody's being targeted unnecessarily.
Sure.
There should be no argument if the statistics
Yeah.
are there. They don't know you're targeting, us for enforcement. If that's where the injuries are occurring, something needs to be done systematically.
I think it would be good for you to come and talk to the Board of Healthy Champaign County, because that has representatives from Public Health, from Carl, supposed to have somebody from, what is the name of the hospital now? Is it Integris? It's
OSF.
It's changed names so many times now.
Yeah,
Used to
I
be
don't
known as
know.
Presence.
Formerly
The hospital.
But, yeah, and what is it called now?
OSF.
Yeah.
What?
But
OSF.
that is the actual name? It doesn't have
Yeah,
the
that's
same
very
part in
confusing.
there
That's
somewhere.
gonna be
No,
hard
there's a longer name.
But,
Part of Mary.
yeah, and
Yeah.
so, and having all, and in school districts, and so I think that would also be helpful.
Just a good-
Yeah, and I guess I'm the acting chair.
Well, I would really like to make sure that we have the political
Yes.
will from the city council that, I don't want to
Sure.
claim we have a Vision Zero policy if we don't. We need to have decided we are adopting this
But
Vision
talking to
Zero.
those folks
policy.
about it, and then bringing them in as supporters, I think would be helpful.
So Audrey, this sample resolution we passed upon development of a Vision Zero plan, right? Is that what this is?
No, you don't have to actually wait for the Vision Zero plan as long as you have a strong intention to do the Vision Zero plan. You can say that we are a Vision Zero city and make the application with those items that are on the back of that,
Say that we are
that
planning to
handout
do
I
it.
gave you.
We're planning
As
to-
long as there's a strong statement and the task force has been assembled with, then you don't have to actually wait for the plan. So that resolution is jumping the gun a little bit because it's assuming we have a plan. The plan would obviously, in this case, involve, we're going to be collecting these statistics to identify the,
So what kind of commitment would you anticipate from the city to be a Vision Zero community?
you mean resources wise. So it's the police time. And we have BPAC. I wish there was a way to fold it into BPAC. Maybe there is. I'm not sure exactly how, because I see no reason why BPAC wouldn't be the core of it, with some participation from.
What do you anticipate like with police time? What do you see there? I'm just trying to understand.
Well, there's that statistics collection, so
So-
I'm not really sure how much time would be involved. However, the city council already has made a prioritized goal dealing with traffic enforcement.
Yeah, and
So I think this
We have
can
a
be
statistician,
folded
dedicated
right into
statistician,
that.
so I think-
Yeah,
Mhm,
yeah.
mhm,
So
mhm.
I'm expecting that it really isn't very much so much
Mhm.
as a strong statement that we are going
This
to
is what we're gonna
be,
do with.
yeah, that
the
we're going
data.
to be a Vision Zero city. We're almost there. We just need a
Mhm.
commitment to these principles.
So you see, it's just basically a policy, almost
Right.
like a complete streets policy that we
Right. Yeah.
follow it.
Right,
Mhm.
yeah, there isn't an instantaneous thing you have to do. It's more of a political will
Okay.
to
I'm just
say
trying to
that we
underst-
agree with these.
Right, I'm trying to understand when you mention maybe a different philosophy in how we handle crashes. What changes from what we're doing right now? That's what I'm
Well,
trying
I guess the issue is you don't have the speed
to. Right.
collected with the crash or even the street speed limit.
Right.
It might list the street and then you have to go back and make sure you know what the speed limit was. Whether speed was a factor isn't really mentioned, I don't think, unless it's hugely over
Right.
the limit.
Right.
But, that the street is identified, because the vast majority of of crashes are actually on a small minority of streets.
So with Vision Zero though, how would that change?
So you target your enforcement on those streets, which might include red light cameras, for instance, reduced speed limits, or more attention to enforcement of certain
Yeah, we don't
behaviors.
So-
have authority downstate to do red light cameras at this point,
No.
unfortunately, but that could be something we could talk to our
To
legislators.
state about.
But it's also street design is also another one of the.
Absolutely.
right-
You don't just change the speed limit, you have to consider how it's designed.
Because
Yeah.
like right now, we do all those things.
Right.
I mean, we
Mhm.
have a traffic commission, if we
Yeah.
Mhm.
have it, you know, an area, we ask for step enforcement with the police, if we have concerns. We get data, I have data right now, a 5-year data on all the crashes within the city of Urbana, in GIS format. We, when things are hotspots, like, we will then target those with our designs or look into those, look into whether or not we apply for highway safety funds. So I'm just trying to understand what's different other than maybe the political will, I guess, to do that.
Well, I think the speed information is something that, in terms of looking at how do we reduce this, was speed a factor, and can we collect any more data on that?
Right.
Well, in Urbana, I think it's very obvious that we have a problem with University Avenue.
Mhm.
We've had a lot of deaths
Mhm.
there.
Right.
We're now proceeding with this IDOT plan, and yet speed somehow isn't really in the conversation.
Well,
the
we
way it should
requested
be.
it.
Yeah.
This body, in fact, passed a resolution and asked them to
Mhm.
take a look at that, but that, we didn't
And
have
I think
control
that
over it.
actually Urbana has requested
We
IDOT
did.
to take
We
a
did,
closer look at
yeah.
that. Yeah.
And for the autonomous vehicle that killed the person yesterday was.
It's going 40.
Took a turn at 40. Didn't stop, didn't slow down, took a turn at 40.
Well, less
So-
than, 1 out of 10 pedestrians will survive a 40-mile-per-hour crash.
Yep.
So they
So-
were 9 out of, they were in the 9 out of 10.
So as I'm understanding, what you're saying is we would adopt this in policy, the city council would, but you're thinking no more resources are required.
Well, of course,
What-
there's going to be
So-
resources if there's a
Okay.
task force. I recognize that there's, staff time is not resource-free. But no, as far as you have to build something
Or
or.
budget, yeah, I don't think we're looking at a
Yeah.
budget.
What do you get when you officially become a Vision Zero community? Is there?
Well, you become part of the network, which has really, you already can access the
Mhm.
materials and so on. They don't have an official logo, maybe they're planning to, but right now, the different cities that are Vision Zero are designing their own.
Okay.
So, Boston, Cambridge, Chicago, San Francisco, Columbia, Missouri, they all have their own
It's
Vision
set-
Zero, but.
It's setting a tone in the community, that this
Mm-hmm.
community is Vision Zero. This community believes that driving speed limits.
That there is no excuse for a pedestrian death, actually,
Right,
is
yeah.
basically what
Yeah,
it
and so, and
is.
what does that mean, and
Uh-huh.
how do we, and like, as a community, these are the values we embrace, and this is, and then because we embrace these values, these essentially are the, what
Like you
some
might
people
have to
say-
slow down in your car.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say inconveniences that I will go for, so my children can walk to school,
Well, it's about
So-
all roadway deaths.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's reducing all of them, and the majority of them are people in vehicles.
That's right, yeah.
And it's like what you answer when
No,
somebody
well,
says,
act-
why are you putting all these new things on Main and when Main crosses Lincoln? Why should we be slowing down on Lincoln?
And just say we're a Vision Zero, this is a movement throughout the country.
Right.
It's a way to
The-
reduce death by car.
There has been some major activism, now it's in New York City, which maybe is another country altogether, but there's been major protests, 1,000 people marching for families for safe streets.
Yeah.
Mhm.
People who have lost family members.
There's a
in
video.
Car accidents
Yeah.
are not taking it anymore, just like the
Yeah.
kids at Parkland aren't
Yeah.
taking it anymore.
Yeah, because it was Brooklyn recently, there was a 1,000 people who marched because a woman hit and killed 2 children and seriously injured a pregnant woman. She crashed into them when they were walking in a crosswalk.
So it sounds like the major benefit that we aren't getting now would be more of a public awareness, public
Yes.
Right.
education.
Right.
Yes.
And a public declaration that this is important to this community.
Yes.
Yeah, because, so generally, what I've noticed in my time here is that, you know, I'll read one of the newspaper reports of somebody dying,
Mm-hmm.
and we might mention it here at BPAC in passing, and we say, oh, that's kind of bad, right? And that's about it, that's all the play that it gets. I mean, I'd like to see, I'd like to see more recognition of that when anybody dies
Mm-hmm.
from traffic. That just seems unacceptable, so that's, I
Mm-hmm.
think that's like the big
Mhm.
driving thing. So like Craig, in terms of what you do, you're already doing the engineering
Right.
stuff.
Right.
So it's not, on your end, it wouldn't be anything else.
Also giving
It's
you,
just-
when we're doing a street, you can say, actually, we
Backing.
do need to lower the speed up to 25 because we have passed this Vision Zero, and in the past, when people were driving 35 or 40 or whatever speed limit,
This is the
we had this
fatality.
many crashes.
Now, you said that we're using the Boulder standards, is that what you said?
For crossing, for mid-block crossings.
Okay, so Boulder has recently become a Vision Zero city, so those standards may be changing
Okay.
because they are now saying no deaths are acceptable.
So any
So,
fatality,
you know,
that-
it would be, maybe we can lead the way and they start using the Urbana standards.
I'm just trying to understand, because, I mean,
Yeah.
right now, if there's a fatality, when we learn about it in engineering, we immediately, or the police, we're,
The police,
we are in
It's a big
direct,
deal.
dialogue with them and try to understand and learn. And, I've even witnessed the security videos and things like that to better understand, which are confidential information. But I'm just trying to understand overall, mainly because we're in a very tight fiscal time,
Right.
and whether or not there would be any additional resources. It may be something that maybe we need to explore a little bit more, just so that we know what we're.
Well, I
heading
think
into.
one of the things it's very political. Boston had already reduced their speed limit to 25. They just decided to reduce it to 20. I mean, you're talking serious politics where you're telling people, hey, I'm sorry, but we're a Vision Zero city. You're going to drive slower here, and oh, by the way, you might see some neat things to stop and buy while you're driving slower through this town. And that's the kind of benefit that people are seeing. So it's a very much a political thing. I don't think it does change engineering, except in as much as maybe designing to help people see that or feel comfortable traveling slower. That's very much an engineering thing, as I'm sure you're aware.
Staff could perhaps contact the people at Columbia, Missouri, and ask them what
Yeah,
kind
what-
of resources they ended up allocating, because
That's a good
Ian
question. That's a good approach.
is staff person with Walk America, so, I mean, he's gonna have pretty good handle on that.
Just the other day, I was on, is it Peabody, going past dark early in the morning, and I thought, well, I always do 25 here, let me just see what 20 feels like. And I was driving at 20 and someone shot out in a wheelchair in front of me. And I was like, oh my
It's a
gosh,
good thing
what would have
for-
happened if I'd been
Like,
doing
yeah, that could have
25?
been really
We would've-
different.
I would have been right there.
Yeah.
I don't know if she would have seen me and not shot out or whatever, but.
yeah.
I always
you
drive on campuses if I'm in a school zone. Because it is a school zone.
So
Yeah.
do you want to just try to add this as a discussion topic next month?
Yeah, because it's our meeting next month, the 17th, is that what I just looked at it and I forgot.
Oh, and then I have another announcement.
Yeah,
Let's just make
it's
sure
the
it's on
17th.
the agenda for
Okay.
next month. I have another announcement that we have a local expert here.
yeah.
Who's going to pass it out, who's going to be speaking.
Sure, yeah, so if you all go to drawdown.org whenever you have a moment, that's a compendium of solutions to climate change. So everything from large-scale solar panels to modular solar panels to reducing food waste to farming practices, all these different things to address climate change.
Very cool.
I wrote the chapter on bicycle infrastructure and electric
Yay.
bicycles and car sharing and high-speed rail. So on April 18th at the Champaign Library, I'll be presenting my research on the bicycle infrastructure impact on climate change, as well as the financial impacts for
Economic
public,
impact?
well, the financial savings essentially to local governments essentially that would be in charge
Ah,
of
local government, okay,
infrastructure.
gotcha, okay.
That
Um,
is like my number one argument to people.
Yeah, yeah,
Like, we will
so
save so much money.
I crunched the numbers, and it's global data, so it's for everything from like all over the
Cool.
world.
Wow, that's great.
So we'll see like bicycle rates in Latin America and in Europe and stuff like that, and projecting it out to increase what could happen in terms of greenhouse gas emissions and financial savings.
Great. Any other announcements? Great, thanks everyone. This meeting is adjourned.